revisit it once more. Did she truly utter those words before an audience? The clip halted, replayed, analyzed in every nook of the internet. Her arms extended, her voice piercing, her hubris forever captured. What she believed to be victory transformed into the very flame that would reduce her empire to ashes, and remaining still at the heart of the tempest, the woman they ridiculed, composed, unwavering, and already strategizing her next step. The wife of Richard Brooks, adorned in a fiery red dress, extended her arms as if presiding over a courtroom, her voice piercing and crystalline, capable of slicing through the air. "This isn't meant for farm girls," she exclaimed. The echo of the ballroom transformed into the resounding roar of the internet. In mere hours, her words transformed into headlines, hashtags, and parodies, cascading through the digital landscape with the ferocity of wildfire. If you value dignity over arrogance and strength over mere noise, consider subscribing, tapping like, and sharing a comment below with your city or country. We take delight in knowing where you're tuning in from. These narratives do more than amuse. They serve as a poignant reminder of what genuine power embodies. We are truly pleased to have you with us. Now, let us return to the woman they ridiculed. Back to Danielle Carter, CEO. The screens of the phones echoed the moment. A relentless loop of memory, across Twitter, through TikTok, and on the stages of late-night shows. That night, the mogul's wife laughed, convinced she had brought humiliation upon someone who dared to stand out of line. Yet, the lens remains an unwavering witness to the truth. Each sneer, each curl of disdain upon her lips was amplified and scrutinized. The audience in the digital realm was not sharing in her laughter. They seethed with anger. In the meantime, Danielle Carter, CEO, remained silent. In the footage, she stood tall in her vibrant orange dress, her posture straight as steel, the contract folder held firmly in her grip. The camera captured her stillness, a stillness that bore a depth far greater than any shout could convey. Her gaze remained unwavering, steadfast in its resolve. It remained steadfast, serene yet penetrating, as turmoil erupted all around her. The comment sections erupted. What could possibly justify her treatment in 2025? This is utterly shameful. I stand beside her. Is she a girl from the farm? She likely possesses a significant portion of the city. The mogul's wife failed to grasp the vastness of the world beyond the gala's shimmering facade. Beyond the horizon, dignity found its admirers. The audience swelled in volume with each passing hour. As the first light of dawn broke, news anchors began to replay the footage. The chyron displayed, humiliation at the Astoria Crown Tower ceremony, ignites outrage. The sponsors have reached out. Public relations managers hurriedly sought solutions. In the vast expanse of the mogul's empire, phones vibrated with an air of urgency and alarm. The wife had not merely ridiculed a guest, she had ridiculed an individual who wielded billions, and now the internet was demanding her accountability. Yet, the CEO navigated the landscape with a distinct approach. No hurried announcement, no protective livestream. She allowed the world to speak for itself. She was intimately acquainted with silence. When wielded with conviction, it transforms into a blade more cutting than any rumor. As the mogul's wife succumbed to the tempest of her own creation, Danielle Carter, CEO, was meticulously strategizing her next maneuver, a maneuver that would catch everyone off guard, especially the one adorned in the red dress. The video transcended mere trends. It exploded. In less than a day, the footage of the mogul's wife, with her perfectly manicured finger aimed at Danielle Carter, CEO, had amassed over 40 million views. News outlets truncated the insult, displaying it beneath striking headlines. This is not intended for those who tend to the fields. TikTok transformed the phrase into a meme, intertwining it with visuals of barns melting into skyscrapers, while farm animals were artfully juxtaposed with the model of the Astoria Crown Tower on stage. The wife's laughter, light and self-satisfied, oozed with a sense of superiority, becoming the internet's anthem of derision. Each smirk she offered at the ceremony lingered, reimagined, and drawn out in time. What she believed to be a victory had transformed into proof. In that moment, Danielle Carter, CEO, emerged as a mere fragment, a still frame captured in time, her orange dress a vivid blaze of defiance against the cold, sterile blue-white lights of the opening ceremony. A close-up reveals her unwavering gaze, lips held in a delicate silence. TikTok captions declare, "That is the visage of a queen who requires no outcry." Twitter threads proclaimed, "This is power without uttering a single word." Attention from sponsors has been garnered. Clients have taken notice. Even casual observers, unfamiliar with the intricacies of real estate, found themselves stopping, sharing, and commenting. Is this really 2025, and people still behave this way? Envision the act of belittling an individual who possesses the very contract firmly grasped in her hand. Is she a girl from the farm? In that room, she alone carries herself with the grace of royalty. Initially, the mogul's wife brushed it aside. She struck a pose for Instagram, sharing a story in her striking red cocktail dress, captioned, "Unbothered." There are those who simply find themselves out of place. She believed it to be a stroke of brilliance. Yet the internet has a way of not overlooking arrogance a second time. Angry emojis poured in by the thousands, accompanied by furious replies and hashtags demanding boycotts. Late-night comedians sensed an opportunity. One host leaned over his desk, a grin spreading across his face. You know you've really stumbled when half the nation is branding you the villain in another's tale of triumph. The crowd erupted in applause. Yet amidst it all, Danielle Carter, CEO, remained silent. There will be no interviews conducted. There are no tweets to be found, selfies without pretense. Her silence wove itself into the narrative. The anchors inquired, why has she remained silent? Analysts pondered, she finds no necessity. The figures shall convey their message. As the mogul's wife engaged in battles within the comment sections, wielding her condescension like a weapon, the Danielle Carter, CEO, convened quietly with her advisors, her demeanor calm and deliberate. She refrained from pursuing the storyline. She allowed the tempest to unleash its fury, fully aware of its destined path. In scandals of this nature, the essence of timing cannot be overstated. Her timing was impeccable. On the third day, the scandal had taken on a life of its own. All the prominent networks showcased split screens. On one side, the mogul's wife halted in a dramatic pose, her arms extended like a sharp blade, her lips twisted in a sneer of disdain. On the other side stood Danielle Carter, CEO, adorned in her vibrant orange dress, chin held high, as she steadied her contract beneath the harsh glare of the cold lights. The captions emerged effortlessly, disdain and dignity. The $8.3 billion rupees loomed ominously. The paparazzi lay in wait outside the mogul's penthouse. Each time the wife emerged, the flashbulbs ignited as if on cue, reminiscent of a courtroom spectacle. Reporters clamored, their voices rising in a cacophony of inquiry. Do you regret the comment? Do you find yourself anxious about the prospect of missing out on deals? What was her response? A dismissive sound escaped their lips. Kindly, it was merely a jest. Individuals ought to cultivate a more resilient disposition. Yet, the more she dismissed it, the more the flames roared to life. The morning talk shows echoed her dismissive tone, while analysts shook their heads in disbelief. That is no jest. That is prejudice on a platform designed for advancement. Within the confines of corporate towers, the repercussions were quantified not in retweets but in figures. A single sponsor discreetly withdrew from a high-end development endeavor. Another halted negotiations, citing concerns about reputation. The mogul's empire, once impervious, now appeared delicate. In the interim, the silence of Danielle Carter, CEO, enveloped the airwaves. Networks commenced the practice of enlisting experts to elucidate her restraint. A professor of business ethics once remarked, "Silence is a power move." She's not merely sidestepping the mud. She's mastering the narrative. With each passing hour of silence, the attention remains fixated on the wife's arrogance, rather than on her true self. Social media has reached a consensus. The narrative of hashtags has transformed from one of outrage to a celebration of admiration. The power of the number farm girl has become a trending topic. Users are sharing images of women in diverse settings, in fields, on construction sites, and in boardrooms, accompanied by the tagline, "Not your stereotype, not your limit." Yet, Danielle Carter, CEO, remained silent. She was captured in a photograph, departing from a glass skyscraper in the heart of downtown. Silence enveloped her as she glided through the marble lobby, each step deliberate and unaccompanied. The media dubbed it power in motion. In stark contrast, the mogul's wife initiated a live stream. The angle of the camera captured the moment flawlessly. Her crimson lipstick stood out vividly against her porcelain complexion. She started, "People are overreacting. I found myself standing firm in the name of tradition. This industry is not meant for those who are not part of it." Yet, the internet dismantled it piece by piece. Fragments of her voice were woven into chilling, horror-themed trailers. The melody saturated with spirits. The comment sections ignited with fervor. She remains oblivious to it. The media cycle became merciless. What was once outrage transformed into a spectacle. The spectacle transformed into a form of entertainment. Entertainment transformed into a powerful tool. Only one woman knew how to wield it effectively. As the mogul's wife found herself submerged in a sea of microphones and camera flashes, the Danielle Carter, CEO, was already ensconced behind closed doors, engaging in conversations where the true negotiations unfolded. The headlines shouted with urgency. The mogul's wife captured attention for all the unfortunate reasons. Each meme, each late-night monologue, cast her in the role of the villain. And yet, amidst the tumult, the Danielle Carter, CEO, stood still, unwavering in the gaze of the public. She was present. She moved with intention. In her private office, glass walls mirrored the skyline she had a hand in financing. She sat at her desk, the infamous contract lying beneath her fingers. Her advisors pressed her to take action. Public relations specialists crafted statements, apologies articulated as elegance, sharp rebuttals expressed as strength. She did not peruse a single one of them. Instead, she closed the folder, pushed it aside, and spoke softly. Dignity remains silent. It bides its time for the perfect moment to strike. The line bore the profound essence of her beliefs. For years, she had traversed boardrooms where her voice was undervalued. Her presence was examined closely. From a young age, she understood that each response was a form of exchange. Anger can be contorted. Words have the power to become weapons. Yet, what of silence? Silence remained an elusive presence. As the mogul's wife unleashed her tirades on live streams and struck poses for the tabloids, the Danielle Carter, CEO, meticulously charted the unfolding patterns. She examined the swift disappearance of sponsorships, how investors murmured of uncertainty. She observed the mogul's empire fracturing, not due to external assaults, but from the hubris that festered within. The reports from her staff came in. An international partner sought reassurance. A different hedge fund contemplated the possibility of reallocating its capital. She nodded, neither rushing nor pleading. She understood that markets reacted not to clamor, but to assurance. Confidence shines brightest when it stands unwavering. The world took notice. Observers started to interpret her silence as a calculated move. On CNN, one anchor leaned forward, their voice barely above a whisper. Each utterance from the mogul's wife burrows her further into the abyss. Each unuttered word from Danielle Carter, CEO, elevates her further. That is not a state of passivity, that is sheer power. For the CEO herself, it transcended mere strategy. It was a dance of survival, refined into grace. Every room where she was told she didn't belong lingered in her memory. She recalled the veiled condescension masquerading as politeness. In the midst of this tempest, she opted to defy the expectations of her adversary. Refusing to engage in the battle they anticipated, she decided to allow the tempest to unveil those who remained unwavering. The night descended. The city lights danced and sparkled upon the surface of her office glass. She stood, walked toward the window, and allowed the skyline's reflection to envelop her like a protective shield. The wife of the mogul let out a piercing scream. The digital realm had erupted with fervor. Speculation had swirled among the press. Yet she lingered. For she understood, storms are but fleeting, yet reputations forged in silence and tempered like steel persist. The initial strike was not heralded by a headline. It originated from a balance sheet, a luxury hotel chain, once boldly emblazoning its name on the mogul's ventures, has now issued a discreet press release. In light of reputational considerations, we are halting any further collaboration. It was succinct, precise, yet in the realm of finance, it resonated like a storm. Within the shimmering confines of the mogul's glass empire, a wave of panic swept through the board members. Figures speak the truth. Contracts have been put on hold. The creditors have made their calls. A $200 million deal in Dubai came to a standstill overnight. As dawn broke, murmurs reverberated through the trading floors. Is the empire on unstable ground? The mogul's wife, still adorned in her signature red, brushed it all aside. She cast a scornful glance in the intimate assembly. They are merely exaggerating the situation. We have constructed towers that surpass their bravery. Her laughter echoed, sharp and fragile amidst the stillness of anxious investors. Yet beyond the confines of the room, the dominoes commenced their inevitable descent. A European bank has declared a temporary review of its $1.1 billion rupee line of credit. A significant retail partner has postponed payments, citing concerns over brand risk. Whispers of discontent echoed through the corridors among the shareholders. With each step she took, steeped in arrogance, reverberations stirred beneath the surface, unseen and unfelt by her. Yet, throughout it all, the Danielle Carter, CEO, remained silent. Yet, her essence lingered in every corner. Across social media, users intertwined images, the mogul's wife gesturing with a sharp intensity, and alongside, screenshots revealing the nosedive of stock prices. Captions declare, "When hubris incurs a price in the billions, mockery of memes, is she a girl from the farm?" Negative. Queen of billions. In the boardrooms, it was no laughing matter. An executive leaned in closer to another, murmuring, "Her silence is our undoing." With each departing sponsor, her strength becomes more pronounced. Another responded, "The optics are deadly. We bleed not from her words, but from her silence." Meanwhile, Danielle Carter, CEO's phone buzzed softly with messages of encouragement. Not tweets, not overt displays. However, direct proposals from investors, partners, and rivals of the mogul. They caught the scent of opportunity. They desired her tranquility, the trustworthiness she embodies. Her meticulousness. She remained silent, not yet ready to respond. Her timing was her most formidable weapon. In her office, she returned the contract to its leather case, gliding it across her desk. Her assistant inquired, a hint of anxiety in their voice, "Do you want me to draft a statement?" She gently shook her head, a slow and deliberate motion. Allow the figures to convey their story, and so they did, each passing hour, each passing day. As yet another sponsor withdrew, as yet another investor backed away, the mogul's wife intensified her display of confidence. She entered the events with her chin held high, exuding confidence. Flashes of light from cameras. Yet, in her wake, the empire she so proudly displayed started to quiver. The irony cut through the air with a keen edge. She had attempted to undermine dignity at the inauguration of the tower. In that moment, dignity stood silent, unbothered, and relentless, as it quietly humiliated her bank accounts, and the world was on the cusp of realization. The tempest ignited by the internet transcended the digital realm. It cascaded into the streets. As the week drew to a close, the mogul's flagship tower downtown transcended its identity as merely a monument of glass and steel. The scene unfolded as a platform for dissent. Dozens of individuals gathered in the plaza, clutching cardboard signs adorned with bold strokes of black paint. Honor the essence of humanity, not the typical farm girl. $8.3 billion rupees does not purchase humanity. What started as a mere whisper evolved into a chorus of hundreds, scholars, laborers, even those retired neighbors who once gazed upon the mogul's projects with admiration, now stood with fury igniting their eyes. Their chants resonated, reverberating through the canyons of steel and glass. We stand in solidarity with her. We stand in solidarity with her. Television crews converged, transmitting live visuals of a city's spirit awakening in defiance of hubris. Commentators recounted the events with a sense of disbelief. Such a significant wave of backlash stemming from a solitary insult is indeed a rarity. Yet, this was far more than a mere insult. It stood as a testament to the intersection of class, race, and power, all unfolding before our eyes. Within the confines of the mogul's penthouse, the curtains hung drawn, tightly shut. The wife, enveloped once more in crimson silk, dismissed the footage with a derisive laugh. Allow them to raise their voices. They are bound to lose interest. Towers do not collapse due to mere indications. Yet beyond the confines, tension escalated. The police were summoned not to quell the violence, but to maintain order as the throng swelled. Chants evolved into a rhythmic flow. The rhythmic pounding of drums fills the air. Voices harmonized. Honor over wealth. Honor surpasses wealth. In the interim, investigative journalists delved further into the matter. Ancient tales emerged from the shadows. Stories of employees brought low at grand events. Of youthful visionaries overlooked at networking gatherings. Patterns began to take shape. Everything leads back to the mogul's wife. With each revelation, public opinion grew increasingly resolute. And yet, the Danielle Carter, CEO, lingered in the shadows, unnoticed. Silence prevails. There will be no march, not suitable for a polished presentation. Yet her presence hung over the protests like an unspoken emblem. Individuals bore banners adorned with her silhouette in a vibrant shade of orange, the viral freeze frame captured from the ceremony, serene and unyielding. In her grasp, a contract lay. To them, she had transcended the role of a mere businesswoman. She stood as a symbol. The mogul's advisors began to fidget with unease. In the meetings, voices collided with fervor. With a resounding thud, one brought his fist down upon the table. The public is slipping away from us. Each chant echoing beyond those towers seeps into our balance sheets. Another one snapped back. Control over this narrative eludes us until she offers her apology. All gazes shifted towards the wife. With her arms crossed, she spoke in a tone that was nothing short of icy. Apologies signify a lack of strength. Yet, the signs of fragility were beginning to emerge. Agreements unraveled with greater speed. The value of shares experienced a decline. Investors harbored more than mere apprehension about the figures. Their hearts quaked at the sight of the throngs. The throngs showed no signs of dispersing. With each passing night, the protests grew in intensity, candles flickering softly, casting their warm light upon the gleaming glass facade of the mogul's empire. The chants persisted endlessly. The communication was unmistakable. Factions had emerged, each declaring their allegiance. Yet the side it embraced was not her own. In the boardroom, a profound silence enveloped the space, punctuated only by the rhythmic ticking of an antique clock. Men in dark suits sat stiffly around the elongated mahogany table, their reflections splintered in its gleaming surface. At the forefront sat Richard Brooks himself, his expression unyielding, lips compressed into a narrow line. Beside him, in striking contrast, his wife lounged in her chair, her crimson dress glimmering beneath the recessed lights, as though she were gracing a gala instead of navigating a crisis. An executive cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the hushed room. In a mere span of 48 hours, we have seen the departure of 3 sponsors. The credit agencies are currently assessing our debt structure. The market observes as we succumb to our wounds. Another interjected with precision. It transcends mere commerce. This pertains to one's personal reputation. Our name is currently in the spotlight, but not for the reasons we would hope for. The mogul's jaw tightened in a steely resolve. He had constructed his empire, layer upon layer, edifice upon edifice, only to witness it quiver at the sound of a solitary phrase spoken beneath the shimmering chandeliers. His silence bore the burden of a man weighing rage against repercussions. The wife cast a weary glance, her eyes rolling in exasperation. Let's set aside the theatrics. It was merely a single remark. Human nature is capricious. This tempest shall eventually subside. Yet the storm did not relent. It only intensified. One board member leaned in, their voice a hushed whisper, laced with an undercurrent of menace. Your hubris is draining our resources by the billions. You ridiculed an individual who wields more wealth than the collective assets of half the people gathered here. Her laughter cut through the air, tinged with a hint of mockery. Oh, do tell. With a flourish, she brandished a contract on stage, and the internet hailed her as a saint. Do you genuinely think she possesses the ability to bring us to our knees? The atmosphere grew tense. Silence lingered, as no one responded. Yet, their silence bore the weight of disbelief. They held a belief. They beheld the figures. The protests unfolded before their eyes, a vivid display of dissent outside. They observed the headlines proliferating, resembling fractures in glass. The mogul finally uttered his thoughts, his voice rough and textured, every word selected with precision, sharp as a knife. This empire stands as a testament to the power of credibility. In its absence, the towers crumble. His eyes moved to his wife, holding a stern intensity. At this moment, you are the fissure in our structure. For the first time, her smile wavered. Just a fraction. A subtle tremor of discomfort lurked beneath the crimson facade and bravado. She averted her gaze, silent in her defiance. Yet, the scars were evident. Once the meeting came to a close, the mogul lingered in his seat, gazing at the skyline that had once epitomized his success. The distant chants of protesters seeped into the room, a haunting echo of unrest beyond the walls. Is dignity more valuable than dollars? The sound pierced the glass, unwavering and resolute. He came to a profound realization, one he would never voice to another soul. This was more than merely a public relations catastrophe. An existential threat loomed large, and the individual who set everything in motion, the woman his wife had derided, remained silent, not uttering a single word. As the mogul's empire quaked, Danielle Carter, CEO, navigated with the calculated grace of a grandmaster maneuvering across a chessboard. The scene unfolded in an exclusive lounge perched atop an international bank. The walls shimmered with a delicate hue of gold. The city skyline loomed behind the glass, a trophy of triumph. She occupied a small round table, not in the company of reporters, nor alongside protest leaders, but rather in the presence of two men and one woman who represented Summit Capital Partners. Their portfolios eclipsed even the vast holdings of the mogul. She came without a prepared address. There was no necessity for her to do so. She entered, bearing gifts of orange fabric, a vibrant blaze amidst the room's subdued hues, her contract case positioned with precision before her. One of the investors leaned closer. We have been observing the aftermath. Billions are retreating from his grasp. His towers stand exposed to the elements. Your quietude, your measured approach, has positioned you as the epitome of trustworthiness. Another remarked, if you're open to it, we stand ready to redirect up to $8.3 billion from his projects to support yours. The CEO wore a solemn expression. She chose not to celebrate. She gave a single nod, taking in the weight of the proposal. The identical figure, the very number that once represented the tower of her humiliation, now returned to her as a tool of power. Her reply was exacting. I have no intention of boasting. I am here to create. Should you choose to invest, it shall be under the principles of dignity and equality. There are no shortcuts, and arrogance has no place here. The room lingered in silence for a moment. In that moment, the investors seemed to move as one, their heads nodding in agreement. Whispers of uncertainty began to weave their way through the corridors of the financial press. Whispers from anonymous sources hinted at a significant shift in capital. Speculation swirls around the headlines. Is the $8.3 billion tower about to change hands? On live television, analysts engaged in a spirited debate. Many claimed it was beyond reach. Some claimed it was destined to happen. In the meantime, the mogul's wife reaffirmed her audacious spirit. At a charity luncheon, she lifted her glass, a smirk playing on her lips as she addressed the microphone. There are those who mistake silence for strength. In my view, it appears to be a manifestation of weakness. The cameras captured the smirk. The irony was captured by social media. The clip surged through the internet with remarkable speed, not as a display of strength, but as undeniable evidence of her blindness. In contrast, Danielle Carter, CEO's move became more defined. She felt no obligation to respond to the insult. She found no necessity in attending luncheons. The markets that the mogul once dominated now revolved around her calm demeanor. As dusk settled, her assistant returned the contract to its rightful place on her desk. This moment transcended the mere confines of a document. It stood as a symbol. The world believed it was merely a matter of humiliation. She understood that it was a matter of direction. Now, billions of dollars hung in the balance, poised for her command. Her hand lingered upon the leather case. The moment was nearly upon us, so near. For it was silence that had brought her to this point. Yet, before long, her initial blow would find its mark. The walls seemed to constrict around me. Once allies of the mogul's family, the tabloids have now turned, showcasing unflattering images of his wife, headlines oozing with scorn, from the heights of high society to the depths of high liability. Her formerly illustrious reputation had morphed into a burden that no public relations firm could cleanse. Yet, she remained steadfast in her resolve. At a swiftly convened press conference, she made her entrance, once more adorned in scarlet. Defiance woven into each strand. Flashes of cameras illuminated the scene, microphones poised in anticipation. She lifted her chin, her voice cutting through the air. I refuse to be muted by the clamor of the crowd or swayed by misleading tales. I uphold the values of tradition, in pursuit of excellence, to ensure that our industry remains in the hands of those who have rightfully earned their place, rather than being taken over by outsiders who simply purchased their entry. Silence enveloped the room. For an instant, she thought her words would strike with the force of thunder. Yet, there are gasps, whispers of surprise, whispers that cascade softly, echoing the moment when one has irrevocably chosen their destiny. In mere moments, snippets of her outburst flooded Twitter. The words, "not outsiders," echoed repeatedly, analyzed in fragments, ridiculed in memes. A tweet that captured attention went, translation, "She signifies the absence of black, not females. No one exists beyond her grasp." In just 12 hours, it amassed an impressive 500,000 likes. Sponsors who had previously maintained their connections now hurried to release statements. We reject all forms of discriminatory rhetoric. The mogul's empire hemorrhaged at an alarming rate. The board members appeared visibly uncomfortable on camera, turning down requests for interviews. Whispers among shareholders spoke of votes, ultimatums, and shifting allegiances. Within the confines of the penthouse, she moved restlessly, her steps charged with intensity. "My words are twisted. They always twist my words," she hissed, shattering a crystal glass against the marble floor. The mogul, fatigued and mute, made no move to hinder her. He gazed at the skyline that had slipped from his grasp. The number of protests outside has doubled. From mere candles, they transformed into blazing torches. Chants evolved into melodies. Some brandished posters featuring her sneer, clad in a striking red dress. Others bore the now iconic image of Danielle Carter, CEO, serene, adorned in orange, unwavering. The disparity was unmistakable. In the boardrooms scattered throughout the city, murmurs began to swell in intensity. One director whispered, "She's pulling the empire into decline." Each word she utters carries a price tag in the millions. Each day her refusal to apologize results in losses amounting to billions. The wife, blissfully unaware, persisted once more. "They will see," she whispered under her breath. "They will recognize that I am the rightful one in this place, not her." Yet, the world had already borne witness. Her desperation, once cloaked in the elegance of champagne and chandeliers, now radiated from every screen. The more fiercely she struggled, the further she descended into the abyss. In a hidden corner of the city, Danielle Carter, CEO, observed, unwavering, as the tide dragged her adversary deeper into the ocean's embrace. The stillness felt almost merciless. The mogul's penthouse, once an emblem of unassailable triumph, now resembled a fortress besieged. Curtains drawn, phones buzzing incessantly, aides murmuring grim tidings like solemn prayers at a funeral. He lingered in solitude at the dining table, the untouched crystal glasses shimmering softly beneath the muted glow of the chandeliers. Opposite him, his wife remained clad in her crimson armor, her lips adorned with a hue that seemed to conceal the fractures within her realm. For days, he had endured her rebellious spirit. Yet, tolerance had become a luxury he could no longer sustain. The CFO's report sprawled across the table, its pages inviting scrutiny. Crimson strokes marred the pages, sponsors vanished, alliances halted, and billions in market worth dissipated. The figures didn't merely bleed, they howled in agony. He let out a deep sigh. "Are you aware of the consequences of your actions?" His voice was a gravelly whisper, low yet undeniably lethal. With a disdainful laugh, she twirled the untouched wine in her glass. "I uttered the truth. If individuals find it difficult to cope, that speaks to their own shortcomings, not to mine." His fist struck the table with a resounding thud. The crystal trembled, its sound cutting sharply through the stillness. "Fragility? This empire has become a mere circus under your reign. I constructed my foundations on trust and partnerships. Yet you have reduced them to ashes with a mere phrase." Her expression stiffened, yet her voice soared, piercing the air with a sharpness. "Do not hold me accountable for their feelings of threat towards her. She is an outsider in our realm." She never did. The mogul's eyes narrowed, a tempest gathering within his stare. "And yet, she is the one grasping the future of our world within her hands." The words pierced with a force greater than shattered glass. For a fleeting instant, her confidence wavered. She averted her gaze, yet the reflection in the penthouse window revealed a hint of uncertainty. A fleeting shadow of fear. In the stillness of the night, the board members convened for an urgent session. There were calls for her to step back from the public eye. Whispers circulated about the possibility of completely cutting off her influence. Their words became piercing. "She does not serve as an asset. Rather, she presents a liability." For the first time, the mogul chose not to offer her defense. He remained still, burdened, his gaze locked onto the crimson ink of the CFO's report. Outside, the protests grew more fervent, candles and torches dancing like fireflies against the towering glass structures. Within the confines of his surroundings, the mogul came to the stark realization that he had reached his breaking point. He found himself at a crossroads, where the loyalty he owed to his wife clashed with the empire he had devoted his life to constructing. He murmured to himself, his voice barely rising above a whisper, "One more mistake and we lose everything." And somewhere across the city, Danielle Carter, CEO, silent and calculating, waited. There was no need for her to raise her voice, no need for conflict. Her adversary was disintegrating from the inside. The moment of reckoning had arrived, and the ultimate strike loomed near. Whispers of intrigue filled the air as the city stirred from its slumber. The airwaves of finance thrummed with conjecture. Is a takeover on the horizon? In hushed tones, traders spoke of abrupt shifts, contracts exchanging ownership in clandestine gatherings under the cover of night. A singular woman held the key to the unfolding mystery, aware of the depths that lay beneath the surface. On the pinnacle of her solitary tower, Danielle Carter, CEO, meticulously readied her strike. She stood before a floor-to-ceiling window, the dawn light spilling across her orange dress like flames licking at cold steel. The contract, the very one she had raised during the opening ceremony, now displayed fresh signatures. Investors, financial institutions, international collaborators. The sum of $8.3 billion rupees shifted, not dissipating into the ether but landing squarely in her grasp. Her chief advisor slipped in silently, his voice unwavering yet laced with a sense of wonder. "The task is complete. The consortium has given its approval. You now possess a commanding majority stake in the tower." She nodded once, exuding calm and composure. Neither festivity nor triumph, only the certainty of what must come. Subsequently, the statement was released. The news erupted within the hour. Bold headlines splashed across every outlet. Danielle Carter, CEO, seizes command of the Astoria Crown Tower. The empire of the mogul splinters as a new force emerges. The Tower Plaza became a magnet for cameras, as the protesters shifted their chants into a chorus of cheers. Signs once crafted in fury now lifted in victory. Victory belongs to dignity. The tower belongs to her. Throughout the city, turmoil enveloped the mogul's stronghold. Executives raised their voices, each trying to be heard above the clamor of competing thoughts. The incessant ringing of phones fills the air. The markets experienced a deeper decline, analysts dissecting the family's reputation. The mogul remained still, enveloped in a silence punctuated by the weight of inevitability. As his wife swept through the room, her fury palpable, it was taken from her, a theft that left no room for doubt. This belonged to us. A board member finally lost their composure. You passed it to her. With each insult and every haughty word, you bestowed upon her the power to claim this as her own. Yet, Danielle Carter, CEO, required no one's approval. She strolled through the gleaming marble lobby of the recently acquired tower. The cameras advanced eagerly, yearning for the sound of her inaugural words. She halted, her gaze fixed intently on the throng of microphones. Her voice remained steady and resolute. Power whispers. It remains silent. It does not bring humiliation. True power is cultivated over time. True power endures. The plaza burst into applause, her words echoing across screens around the globe. In that instant, she transcended the role of a mere businesswoman, embodying the essence of dignity reclaimed. She stood as a symbol, a Danielle Carter, CEO who transformed silence into a calculated strategy, turned insult into a vast empire, and converted a $8.3 billion humiliation into her crowning triumph. The last blow had been delivered. The plaza lay in serene silence now. The throngs had scattered. The echoes of the chants lingered only in the recesses of memory. Yet, the radiance of triumph hung in the atmosphere, imprinted upon the steel and glass of the Astoria Crown Tower, which now proudly carried her name. Within the confines of the building, Danielle Carter, CEO, found herself solitary on the uppermost floor, her hands gently pressed against the chilled glass, gazing out over the sprawling cityscape. The skyline sparkled below her, every structure a testament to aspiration. Yet this evening, a single tower recounted a narrative that transcended mere profit margins or feats of architecture. A narrative unfolded, one where dignity ascended to reclaim its rightful throne. The event was heralded by reporters as the takeover of the decade. Financial analysts referred to it as a quintessential example of silent leverage. Yet for those who walked the streets, the students, the workers, the mothers and daughters, it transcended mere business. It stood as undeniable evidence. Evidence that quietude can resonate more powerfully than hubris. Evidence that a black woman, ridiculed as a farm girl under the glare of flashing cameras, transformed humiliation into a thriving empire. The mogul's wife had slipped away from the gaze of the public. The former luminary of soirees and philanthropic gatherings had now become the subject of hushed gossip in the tabloids. Alone and cast aside, her pride lives on solely as a warning to others. Her husband, worn and weary, beheld the diminishment of his empire, acutely aware that the devastation stemmed not solely from the markets, but from the words he had failed to silence. Danielle Carter, CEO, on the other hand, refrained from gloating. Neither champagne nor an extravagant party graced the occasion. Instead, she assembled her team in the conference hall of the tower, where the long table shimmered beneath the gentle glow of soft lights. With a calm yet commanding presence, she positioned the contract at the center and began to speak. This transcends the mere concept of a building. This serves as a gentle reminder. Each choice we undertake in this space must pay homage to the journey that has led us here. Honor, fairness, and the steadfast rejection of bias. Should we allow ourselves to forget that, we risk becoming no more virtuous than those we sought to overcome. Her team absorbed every word, their gazes locked, as though they were not merely receiving instructions, but embracing a declaration of purpose. As the night deepened, she found herself walking alone through the lobby where it had all begun, the realm where laughter and derision once pierced her like blades. The marble floor resonated with the sound of her solitary steps, each one measured and serene. A security guard inclined his head with respect, and for the first time, she permitted herself the slightest hint of a smile. The tower had shed its former identity as a beacon of exclusion. It belonged to her, a testament, a legacy. As the city lights shimmered beyond the glass, her voice hung in the silence, reminiscent of a solemn vow. They claimed I was an outsider, yet I forged a sense of belonging within the very fabric of this city, and that is something no one can ever strip away. The tale was finished, transcending mere triumph. It became a legacy.